Hey, today on Tech News Weekly, no, I am not Micah Sargent. I am Aunt Pruitt, and I'm sitting here with Mr. Jason Howell, and we're going to talk about the NFL. Yes, the NFL on Tech News Weekly, but we're also going to get into some other stories like, hey, what's going on with Wyze, and why did they wait so long to let us know about a particular vulnerability in one of their products? And also, what about virtual kidnapping? You ever heard of that? It's pretty scary stuff. And I got a feeling it's going to be around for a while. That's coming up next.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is Tech News Weekly, episode 228, recorded Thursday, March 31st, 2022. This episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by NetFoundry. Make the security of your network entirely irrelevant by isolating your applications and data with open source embedded zero trust. Grab your free swag and free tier now by going to netfoundry.io/twit.
And by Nareva. Traditional audio conferencing systems can entail lots of components. Installation can take days, and you might not get the mic coverage you need. That's expensive. But Nareva Audio is easy to install and manage. No technicians required, and you get true full-room coverage. That's easy economical. Learn more at nareva.com.
Hello, welcome to Tech News Weekly, the show where we talk to people who are making and breaking the tech news. I'm one of your hosts, Jason Howell.
I am Aunt Pruitt.
Yeah, how's it going, Aunt?
Unbelievable, sir. How you be?
I'm doing awesome. It's great to get the opportunity to do this show with you. On one hand, it's a bummer that Micah isn't here. On the other hand,
we don't miss
it's also nice because I get the chance to do the show with you today.
Yes.
I'm stoked. I'm looking forward to it.
So glad to be here in the studio with you live and in person.
Micah's taking, is it a vacation? I can't recall.
I'm not believing that. That dude never takes any time off. Really? He's always working on something. So him in vacation, I'm not buying it.
Yeah, that Venn diagram doesn't really cross very much. We all deserve a little vacation here and there.
Indeed.
Why don't we start off with your story? You have a story to talk about. Tell me about it.
Well, Mr. Howell, I know this is TWiT TV and it's all about the tech, but look here, folks. I want to talk a little bit about football because that's what I love. I love football. You've heard of the NFL, the National Football League, and how big and awesome it is, but the NFL is a really big business, and right now they are in the midst of trying to figure out what are they going to do with their particular content as far as monetizing from the viewership, because everybody's not going to the games, of course. But in the past, NFL has had a relationship with the folks at DirecTV where they offering the NFL Sunday ticket.
Oh man, I had that Sunday ticket for quite a few years.
Right, and it is a great deal. People can get that and watch games from all over the country, not just wherever you're locked in geographically based on the broadcast standards that are in place. Well, that contract is getting ready to run out within the next year. I believe it's 2023 when that contract is up, and the NFL is trying to figure out what to do. So, of course, you've had rumors just a couple of weeks ago of Apple showing interest in the NFL and saying, hey, let's talk NFL. Let's do some business together, because Apple has its streaming platform, and the NFL has already actively been streaming in addition to what they do with the Sunday ticket. You had access, whether it's through Verizon and Yahoo. You had access on Amazon Prime if you were a Prime member, with their Thursday night games being specially there, or you just go to the NFL.com website and you can watch the Thursday night games there. So they had a lot of different options and utilizing a lot of tech because, hey, upstream is just so much better nowadays. So you can show these games in beautiful, high quality and keep all of your fans happy regardless of where they are. But now NFL is saying, okay, well, since we've been able to do this with all of these different partners, why don't we cut out some of these middlemen and middlewomen, if you will, and say, let's make our own platform. Why not have NFL Plus? And I thought about that and said, that would be smart for the NFL because they got all of the resources right there in-house, and they can offer this to anybody around the world, not just here in the U.S., and deal with all of those different regulations and get more eyes on the already big sport, the NFL.
So is the idea with the NFL Plus, we're going to put all our games onto this? Or is it kind of like the NFL channel or the NFL network rather?
Right.
Where it's like, oh, NFL network, great. They're going to have everything in. No, they don't actually. They have certain games and then they have a lot of like interviews and a lot of, special content around football.
That's the thing. I thought about this and said, I hope this isn't just an extension of the website.
That's what I was
I want more than that. And then I started to wonder, okay, what exactly would the cost be for this? Because if I'm going to pay $20 a month for this package, it better give me more than just some interviews with some former coaches and former players or just 2 games a week. It better allow me access to every daggum game on the schedule if I want to, because I'm a person, I don't know if you TWiT folks are familiar with this, but being a Carolinian growing up, I had the option to watch the Dallas football team and the Washington football team, and every now and then the Atlanta football team, because the Atlanta football team was horrible back then, so they didn't show them on TV. They didn't show them on TV often, and that bugged me because I had no interest in any of those teams. And then the Green Bay Packers showed up one weekend on my screen, and I was hooked. But I couldn't watch them every week because they're not in my region.
Right.
I want to be able to latch on to whatever team I enjoy and watch them at any given Sunday, whether I'm in the Carolinas or whether I'm here in Petaluma, California.
Yeah, I mean, and kind of along those lines, like when I remember when I had the Sunday ticket on DirecTV, this is when DirecTV actually made sense for our family, right? Yeah. At a certain point, we're like, all right, we're hardly watching 99% of the stuff here, so we let it go years ago. And before kids, we were really into football. And so we got the Sunday ticket, and I remember it being really expensive. I just did a search, and it's close to $300.
It was crazy expensive.
$300 to get all access, which, I mean, kind of wrote that off as being just the cost of being a true football fan, because I wanted the access to everything, and you don't normally get that. So $300 over the course of like whatever the season is, 4 or 5 months, okay, fine. $75 a month for the constant access to everything. Fantasy football, it made fantasy football easier.
It made fantasy football so much easier.
And a lot more enjoyable.
It did. And the thing is, as a hardcore football fan, and which I like to sort of call myself, I thought that was a bit steep to get that Sunday ticket. So when I did get the Sunday ticket, I ended up catching it on a promotional deal, because $300 for that package for something that's not even yearly.
Yeah, exactly.
That's something's wrong there, which made me think more about this story. We're paying subscription fees for everything now. You're paying for your Amazon Prime. You're paying for Netflix. You're paying for Apple TV Plus. You're paying for... How many daggum subscriptions do we have nowadays? And now we're going to add one more. So I'm wondering what's the cutoff going to be for us as a consumer, and say, okay, that price is good enough for the NFL, and is this something that's going to give me content for the whole year, not just the football season? How does it set up against, the likes of a Showtime or Paramount Plus and things like that? Because we're starting to have a bit of a subscription overload.
Yeah, for sure. It does give people the chance to pick and choose the things that actually really matter to them. And, sports fans, and maybe not just sports fans, because there's ESPN Plus as well, right? But football fans, like true, dedicated, devoted football fans, that they're going to be very interested in this, and probably prioritize it over other things. What I'm wondering is, if this app will possibly serve all games, and we don't have any indication as far as that's concerned.
They're real tight-lipped on everything right now.
But I have to guess that that's kind of the direction, or at least most games, because even with Apple Plus, it's like not Apple Plus, Disney Plus. You don't get access to every single Disney movie that's ever existed, but you get access to a ton of them.
That's a lot of stuff.
And there's got to be that value in an NFL Plus streaming package, right? So do they recoup, how do they recoup the cost if the cost before was close to $300? Break that down into a monthly fee, and I don't think people are going to pay $75 for NFL Plus streaming package.
At least Aunt Pruitt isn't.
I mean, we're kind of getting more and more used to these prices being somewhere in the $7 to $15 to maybe $20 a month. I mean, maybe. I don't even know if I have an example of that off the top of my head. That's pushing it.
$20 is going to be pushing it.
But NFL is going to have to price this, if it contains all that content, in a way where they feel like it's valuable to them. If they go that route, though, I'm going to be kind of happy because with any of these streaming services, I mean, we do have some streaming services that we are just subscribed to all the time. But like YouTube TV or, this like dropping in on TV. When the Olympics happen, I buy one of those, or I buy access for a month. And I do it then instead of paying for an entire year to get that access. And I would totally do that for the NFL.
I wonder if that's part of their thought process, knowing people would only spend just for the season versus something year round. And I also have to mention that this is a story that originated on The Atlantic, but we're referencing it from The Verge, just to get that clear. What are your thoughts on having someone like Apple step in and say, you know what, let us provide this for you? I mean, granted, the NFL is huge. They got plenty of eyeballs. Do they even need the likes of an Apple? Do they need the likes of an Amazon to help promote this?
I think that it seems to me that the NFL feels, I mean, they've had that relationship with DirecTV for so long. So it seems to me that maybe that's kind of been their example, is tying this as like a marquee offering for one specific avenue. That's the other part of this that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. If they're doing NFL Plus, and then they're also doing a deal with Apple, would they then be going in the direction of like, you know what, you can get the full season of NFL games in many different places. You're still going to be paying a lot in all these places, or maybe you won't. I don't know what that looks like. But I mean, no matter what, that seems like a pairing that, I don't know, kind of makes sense to me. NFL is this top-notch, top of the heap sports brand. They
are. It's a
league/brand.
It is a brand.
Apple is top of the heap in technology. Some might feel the same about their streaming efforts and everything.
They're starting to creep up on the entertainment aspect.
I mean, they just won an Oscar.
Right.
The Oscar for Best Picture, first streaming company to do that. So, I think it actually makes a lot of sense for them to tie their reputation to another that has, an equally strong reputation.
Part of me feels like the NFL is just going to be greedy and say, give me all the cash. We'll do this ourselves.
I don't doubt that one bit. We'll see where that heads to. Very interesting.
I'm looking forward to it. They have to make a decision, before the 2022 season starts, which is what, 3 to 4 months away from now. So they need to figure something out and get this ball rolling. And please hurry up and let us know sooner rather than later so I can figure out where I need to allocate funds.
I was going to say, so you can start saving your money, your bucket loads of money. So that you can watch
folks, we're going to cut out Netflix for a little while. All right, kids, y'all good with that?
That might be a good trade-off, actually. All right, coming up, what is virtual kidnapping? I started to read this article like a week and a half ago, and I was like, what the heck would that be? And it's actually really terrifying. So we're going to talk about that. But first, this episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Net Foundry. If only there was just some magical way to stop DDoS attacks, stop brute force, credential stuffing, CVE, zero-day exploits, things we talk about on this show and this network all the time. BGP hijacks, phishing, you name it. There is, by using OpenZD, you can actually isolate your applications and data. That makes the security of your network entirely irrelevant. OpenZD is created and maintained by Net Foundry. It actually represents the next generation of secure, open source networking for your applications and really provides you with everything you need to spin up a truly private, zero trust overlay network in minutes. And across anything, really, directly in your app, on your device, in any cloud. It's built on principles of extensibility, on flexibility, and scalability. So you can actually give your apps superpowers when you're using the OpenZD SDK. All it takes is a few lines of code, or you can use their tunnelers to spin up zero trust networking in minutes across any cloud or device. Using OpenZD actually isolates your apps and systems so they can not be subject to external network level attacks from malicious actors, while protecting from internal or even OS networks, such as being immune to network side channel attacks like phishing. And there's no need for expensive or risk reactive patching. Agnostic design patterns actually ensure you only need commodity internet without bound ports, without needing networking engineering skills to implement it. So you can say goodbye to things like complex firewall rules, inbound ports, public DNS, static network access controls. You can say goodbye to VPNs even. Eliminate the tug of war between developers and security. With developers, you can actually work programmatically with software, while with security, isolating apps driven by policy, visibility, and logs that they require. Zero Trust is a journey, so, start wherever you need, and that's based on your own individual priorities. OpenZD actually offers numerous SDKs, tunneling apps for popular operating systems, and edge routers and cloud marketplaces. And if you don't want to host OpenZD, you can use the NetFoundry SaaS, including free forever tiers for up to 10 endpoints. OpenZD is actually trusted by developers all across the globe. Microsoft, Oracle, Ramco, just to name a few. So head to netfoundry.io/twit. You can learn more and get started by doing that. That's netfoundry.io/twit, and get your free swag and free tier now when you do so. And we thank NetFoundry for their support of Tech News Weekly. All right, so this story has something that like I said just a few moments ago, I had never heard of before, but it really caught my attention. And in reading through this story, which really is written kind of in many ways like a novel, like it has, like, it's very descriptive. I just love how it was written. It turns out, even if kidnapping is virtual, as the name implies, it's still very terrifying for its victims and leaves a lasting mark, if not monetarily, but kind of traumatically. It's very, very interesting. Joining us to talk about this phenomenon is David Kushner who wrote this article for Business Insider. David is, of course, an author of many books, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But welcome to the show, David.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to get you on. I appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk to us about this.
Sure.
You start things off in your article kind of setting the stage based around a gentleman who you name Richard Mendelstein. The name is changed, of course, for the purposes of the article. But set the scene for us, because it really does kind of demonstrate how something that on its surface could seem like a little harmless, it's a prank phone call at the end of the day. But really, it has some dramatic impacts on the family, on his life going forward, essentially. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, completely. I mean, he was just, in the Princeton, New Jersey area, working at home, as most of us do these days, it seems. And he gets a phone call on his cell phone, and it's from a number he doesn't recognize. And he's the guy who actually will report junk calls, that are coming in, and he's an engineer and all that. But when he picked it up this time, and he heard his daughter calling out for help, saying, help me, daddy, and so on. And then the next thing you know, a man grabbed the phone and demanded a ransom, and demanded that this guy's not talk to his wife, not respond to any texts, and that he has to now go get this ransom money if he wants to see his daughter alive.
And what's instantly interesting about this, as we kind of read through your article, is the reality that the daughter is actually not on the other side of the call, right? This is ultimately, it's a numbers game. It's a scam. It's a hoax. Someone is calling looking for a Mendelstein to be on the other side that buys into it hook, line, and sinker. And part of the challenge, like I'm a parent, I've got two children, and I think about, I try and put myself into that position of picking up the phone and having someone saying, "We've kidnapped your daughter, we demand a ransom." And then also not only just hearing that, because that in itself might sound a little suspicious depending on the situation, but actually hearing some reaction that sounds like my daughter or whatever, that's frightening. How does that work if that person doesn't actually have the victim? Why is that so convincing?
Well, these were the questions that I had. I actually knew this family who this had happened to, and I was obviously, shocked by it, and then found out, wait, this is happening all over the country. It's been happening for a while. It's incredibly widespread. And I assumed it was a lot more sophisticated in terms of how this was being done. But really, it's just cold calling. And, a lot of people who they call won't have kids, right? So they're going to hang up. And then other people will hang up because they're suspicious or what have you. They just don't buy it. But all they need is one person. And in terms of, in this case, for example, when he related the story to me, the victim, he said, I heard my daughter's voice, but it really wasn't her voice. It was a recording of just a canned recording of a young woman crying for help. But in his mind, it was his daughter. So when his wife asked him what's going on, he said, our daughter has been kidnapped. And she said, how do you know? And he said, because I spoke with her. So, you can't underestimate what fear does to your perception.
Absolutely. I can only imagine, hearing those words, hearing the cry. It's almost like your mind fills in the gaps. Your reason in that moment is overshadowed by this adrenaline filled moment. And, we don't take the time to rationally kind of make that analysis. Was that actually the voice of my child? Was that higher or lower pitched or whatever the case? It doesn't matter. It's we've already decided, worst case scenario, I need to save my daughter.
And
you've basically gone into the fight or flight.
Yes.
So there is no rational, and it's very easy. And, and I spent a lot of time reporting on this. It's very easy to think that, you never fall for this. But that's what all of the victims thought too. And I think it's just, just being vulnerable in those moments.
Yeah.
Yeah. I believe that these bad actors, they know that's how humans are going to react. This is sort of the fight or flight, and it's an instant type of reaction. But my question to you, with this happening, what exactly is the end game for the people doing these acts?
Yeah. Well, money. And so basically what they're going to do is keep you on the other end of the line as long as they can. You'll go to a money wiring facility. You'll wire it to some kind of middle person, who will pick it up, and then it'll go, to the people who are behind this. But they're trying to get as much money as they can. And they are very shrewd about it because they're not asking these victims for tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. They may be asking for $4,000 or $5,000. And the reason they do that is because it's enough that they can get somebody to pay it.
Right.
And so, everything is very, very calculated, and they know what they're doing.
Wow, no kidding. You also detail kind of how this is happening a little bit later in your piece. You you show that a lot, at least in some of these cases, these calls are being made from prison. How exactly does that, what are the machinations of how that actually works?
Well, that's the crazy twist that happens is when, initially these cases start happening first in Beverly Hills. And they were really confounding everybody, and cops were falling victim. These kind of socialites were falling victim. You name it. And then it spread over to a wealthy, suburb outside of Houston. So they didn't really know what was happening or why. And what they eventually figured out was that there was this kind of kingpin who'd come up with this system, and the system was to distribute burner phones in Mexican prisons. And because the prisoners are the ones who have all day to sit there on phones and make cold calls. And the guys who came up with this scam had been in a prison in Mexico, and they basically came up with this idea. And it's from their vantage point, it's kind of a great idea because, when I spoke with the FBI, they basically said to me, what are we supposed to do? These guys are in prison. We can't throw them in jail. They're already there. So it's a very confounding situation for the FBI.
Yeah, this sounds like a massive upgrade to the scam that we're used to hearing with people calling you to say, hey, your computer has a virus and, let me walk you through this. these are people that are already behind bars. They got nothing to lose.
Nothing to lose, right?
And more to gain for someone else. This is just really, really fascinating.
Yeah, and you know, basically, I mean, the advice that the FBI has is just hang up. That's actually the messaging that they're doing, because there really isn't a lot you can do to prevent it from happening. And like I said, I mean, you'd be shocked about the numbers of people out there who this has happened to in some form. And a lot of people don't talk about it, even though it has happened.
I wonder if there's some sort of like a catch rate, if you will. If someone answers the phone and doesn't fall for it, is that logged some type of way? I mean, I know they're using burner phones, but I wonder if there's some type of tracking or reporting back that says, you know what?
I mean, they're just... Yeah, exactly. I mean, the FBI, they're again, like when I first heard this, there were rumors going around town that they had that the perpetrator had ripped some audio from the kids, Instagram. So that would make sense, right? That's how they may kind of create a deep fake to get them to believe it. But again, it's completely these are unsophisticated crimes, kind of by design. All you really need is a phone and some good social engineering skills, as they're called.
Time to find the one that's going to fall for it.
So I mean, I think in answer to your question, I think they're just like, hey, go through these set of numbers methodically, and they maybe just checking them off in a notebook. But it's really cold calling, and they just need one person.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask about the whole, you mentioned deepfakes, but I think in hearing what you just said, it really doesn't matter. Like my mind immediately jumped to, okay, so then, people might be suspicious because they don't, that's not my daughter. Like I hear that voice and whatever, hang up or whatever. But it really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, like you said, it's a numbers game. Even if they were to do a deep fake and get the voice of that person, it's still such a small number compared. They probably have the same success rate, just doing it kind of dumbly or blindly the way they're doing it right now.
Yeah.
And that's kind of frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a con, they're con artists. I mean, the way I think of it is that in hacking terms, I mean, I think they're just phishing out there. It's not spear phishing, but the idea of spear phished virtual kidnapping to me is maybe one iteration of this. If it does get to the point where you are targeting certain individuals and you are manipulating, audio, video, which is pretty feasible. So, these things always seem kind of far out until they start happening. I mean, 10 years ago, I wrote a story about the first guy who was hacking webcams. And, that just seemed so bizarre at the time. And now we kind of take that for granted.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because I have a story coming up later about Wyze that is entirely about that. Very in the news today. This keeps happening. Yeah, exactly. Right. Lastly, like you mentioned the book, just a second ago. You're an author of a number of books. One book that you wrote in the last few years is called Alligator Candy, and actually, kind of and by your admission, you mentioned this in your article, but you detail your investigation of the disappearance of your own brother when you were a child. So it really kind of ties into the subject matter of what you're writing about here. So I guess I'm curious from that perspective, from your perspective, which is a lot closer to this than I'd say most people reading the article. Yeah. What are your thoughts about this scam on a personal level, about the impact that this has on people who are on the other end of it?
Yeah, I mean, it makes me empathetic to it. And I understand kind of as a journalist who's been on this from the inside, what happens within a family when those emotions get triggered. And, and so I understand that through my own experience, but I just think it really speaks to how insidious this crime is, that they are, tapping this most vulnerable kind of primal emotion that's in everyone and just seeing if they can exploit it.
Yeah. Indeed. Fascinating stuff. I love your writing, David. Thank you so much for coming onto the show and telling us a little bit about this piece and your other work. Of course, David Kushner. Search for his work. If people actually want to find your work, where would you point them?
You should go to my website, which is just davidkushner.com.
Awesome. Thank you again, David, and best of luck. We'll talk with you soon.
Thanks. All right.
Take care.
All right, coming up next, I want to talk a little bit about a social network that hardly ever gets talked about in any of my circles, and that's LinkedIn. But before we do that, we want to take a few minutes to thank this week's fine sponsor, the folks at Nareva.
Oh, yeah.
Complicated and costly. Yes, that has been the state of audio conferencing in the larger spaces for a long time, and choosing traditional audio systems, they tend to be a bit of a pain when it comes to installation because there's so much gear involved and there's cables everywhere, and then there's Burke yelling at you because you're tripping over the cables. There needed to be something that's so much simpler, and that's when the folks at Nareva stepped in as they made a leap in creating the revolutionary microphone mist technology. With this patented technology, one or two integrated microphone and speaker bars fill a room with thousands of virtual little microphones. There are no dead zones, and everyone can be heard everywhere in the room. Meeting and class participants, they can simply just talk amongst each other, and it just sounds natural, and they move around, and everything just sounds good, and all of the remote participants can hear every single person in the room. Thanks to the continuous auto calibration, your rooms are instantly and always ready for optimized audio. There is no outside text required. Thank goodness. Nareva has also simplified this installation in its 30-minute DIY job setup. So not a lot of fussing and fighting with getting everything hung up and pulled and dragged across the floor. Oh, this is so much easier than that. So that means it's big savings on your time and costs compared to the traditional audio systems. They've also simplified the management too. So IT, you don't have to worry about stress and pain when it comes to managing this, because the Nareva console has the power to let IT monitor and manage the systems from pretty much anywhere. So you don't have to worry about IT running from room to room to make sure everybody is close to the mic and make sure the speakers are in the right spot. So, just manage this stuff remotely. So simple. Now, ask yourself, if you want to go with the costly and complicated traditional systems, or make the leap to the simple and economical Nareva. Learn more at nareva.com. That's NUREVA.com. All right. So, I want to talk about LinkedIn because I got to tell you, Mr. Howell, LinkedIn has been pretty important in my perspective from a photographer and content creative perspective. And when I talk about LinkedIn to people, they all look at me sideways. They're like, that's not Facebook. That's not Twitter. That's not Instagram. But LinkedIn has been pretty big for me for generating business. Okay. So I will go there and post things about my different skills and whatnot I can offer for your business from a photography or videography standpoint and get gigs. I'm actually actively working on a gig right now.
Nice.
Yeah. But here recently, there's been a problem that I've noticed with my LinkedIn feed. I get a lot of random messages from recruiters, air quotes, and they will say, "Hey, Ant, you look like you would be perfect for this job of hanging drywall at our facility."
You're like, oh, wow, you know me so well.
So I'm thinking, okay, this is not a real person. This is clearly
Or it's a person with a really bad perspective, right? like really bad at reading the room, right?
So I'm like, okay, something's going on here. And I just sort of chalked it up to typical social media. You're going to have bots, you're going to have spam and things like that. But it's gotten pretty bad here on LinkedIn. And the folks at NPR did a bit of an investigation and found that there's a company out there that's creating thousands of fake profiles to help with the recruitment process of getting someone into a particular gig. And I looked at this and thought, okay, all right, AI is good for doing a lot of things to get tasks done that are repeatable and get it done faster. But then there's going to also be times when AI could be a bit of a bugaboo with stuff like this here. And the story is this company decided, you know what, we have a client that is trying to fill a role, and there's only so many of us that can get out there and hit the pavement, if you will, to recruit people. Why not just create several different bots or fake accounts that can go out and just mass recruit and try to see if we can pull in the talent that way? It's going to save us time. It's going to save us money. And we just may pick the person, be able to get the person we're looking for with a lot less effort. And this has been pretty scary to think about. But part of me, from a business standpoint, I get it, trying to make things easier on your sales team or your marketing team or recruiting team. But at the same time, ethics comes into play. Look, dude, I'm not here to hang your drywall. Sorry. But you could at least do a little bit of research about me and understand that, hey, no, he's not here for hanging drywall. He's got other things that he's skilled in. And this is pretty scary stuff, but it's starting to get a little bit worse over on LinkedIn. I always thought LinkedIn was going to be more of the platform that's a bit cleaner and way more professional. You're not going to see memes and things like that. But there's always the daggum bots that's in here to screw up the party.
Always the bots coming along and, only having one earring on one side of the face because it's computer generated, and part of their hair is faded out and blurs into the background. And
it's crazy. I mean, they tried to do a good job of creating these profiles, and as the story
in the small
mentioned,
images, they actually do look pretty good.
It looks totally fine when you're looking at just a profile on a web page or whatever, and the image is just a couple pixels wide. But in the story, they mentioned that as they look closer at the profile, they notice how things in the profile image was just off because the AI really screwed things up from a portrait standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, there's pretty obvious telltale signs, and they did a really good job of spelling these out. But I've noticed these too when I've seen different articles about, is this a real person or a fake person? And it gives you like a whole gallery of them, and you realize that, holy cow, computers are really good at creating fake people now.
It's getting better,
but there are total signs, right? There's like that kind of blurry background, that nondescript kind of vague blurry background. The eyes, they point out, are centered, and that's just because the matching within the algorithm, when it's centered, it has the ability to kind of morph and transform between many more faces. Things like that earring only appearing on one side and not the other, which I'm surprised that these systems haven't, like the people behind the systems haven't recognized that as a flaw, because that's the thing that comes up more and more.
But see, that's the thing, though. Some of this stuff comes off as, that's really obvious. But at the same time, think about how many times you've been on, say, Instagram or Twitter, and someone's shared a selfie of themselves and they shot it in portrait mode, whether it's on iPhone or Android. And that thing, you see that AI really screwed up that blurry background and cut their hair off and stuff. But we just sort of dismiss it because it's sort of normal. Maybe the AI is looking at it from that perspective and saying, they're not going to notice that because they see
most people
bad
probably
selfies
aren't
all the time.
Yeah, totally. Most people aren't. I mean, this kind of ties in with the interview a little bit. It's a numbers game, right? It sounds like when I read through this, I was like, well, yeah, but why would they? Why would they release an arsenal of fake accounts on LinkedIn for recruiting? Aren't you then just like aren't you then essentially saying, hey, anyone and everyone come work for us or something? And I would think that you'd want to hone this a little bit.
You would think you'd want to filter it a little bit better, but who knows? There a couple of the companies that NPR reached out to said, yes, we have hired a firm to help us with our recruiting, but we do not authorize them creating these fake accounts. And a lot of them, they didn't know this stuff was happening. But at the same time, there were a few of them that knew, hey, they're going to try to generate leads by any means necessary because we're trying to get this position filled. But at the same time, they're like, no, we didn't want it to be just fake accounts out there scraping the internet.
And when I think of all the social media services, LinkedIn really, I mean, I guess Facebook likes to, has enjoyed in the past saying that, well, our accounts, it's all real people. You can't fake a Facebook account, which is a lie. You totally
lies.
But when I think of LinkedIn, I just think of the the reason that LinkedIn exists is because it's kind of a place for us to show who we actually are from a career standpoint, which has the potential to, lift us up to new heights, in our career. So I just think of LinkedIn and I think, well, why would you want a fake account on LinkedIn? Like, what would that actually do for you? But
it's doing nothing.
I guess somebody out there realized, oh, hey, wait a minute, we could use it for recruiting.
I've been bugged by this because, again, I look at LinkedIn as just another way for me, and I'll just be frank, to continue to draw income, and I am
not alone.
I'm here doing my thing at TWiT, and I love it, but I'm also a photographer, and I like to shoot projects here in town and things like that, and LinkedIn is the perfect platform for that. You don't see me connecting to just everybody on there. It's just like with you on Twitter and Instagram, you get followed. A lot of people will just follow someone back because of the rationale of it. That's not my logic when it comes to LinkedIn.
No, neither is it mine.
Right. But LinkedIn is more of, hey, is this going to help me with my professional aspect, not necessarily just social side of things. This is a professional platform, and I try to treat it as such. But again, it's just so funny to see this kind of stuff come through the messaging filter that says, hey, you would be a perfect fit for flipping burgers for us. Come on over.
If you ever think that, this podcast thing isn't working for you and you want to put up some drywall, let's just say we got to you first.
Oh, man, it's so funny. And in more news with LinkedIn here recently, I find this funny because, yes, I'm a content creator, but I hardly think of LinkedIn as being a platform for me to use to create content. So LinkedIn has now started rolling out some content creator tools that allow people to do like these little broadcasting events and things of that nature to talk about whatever it is they want to talk about. I've seen a few things pop up on my feed, including some from our very own Mr. Curtis Franklin on This Week in Enterprise Tech, where he just did a talk about some information security things. And some of that sounds good, but at the same time, it seems a little bit weird. I don't know. Maybe it's because I don't know. It just seems a little off.
To get content through LinkedIn?
Yeah, it seemed like when I think about the tools that are inside of Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter or what have you, it seems more entertainment-ish to me. And I don't think about going to LinkedIn for entertainment, but I don't know. Maybe that's the thing. They're trying to show that you can create educational content here on LinkedIn and it be professional and structured. But I don't know what they're going to do to really make that better because they don't have the influencers yet. And I'm pretty sure they're not going to.
I don't see LinkedIn as a real hot destination for influencers.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Other than to create their portfolio and show how they are an influencer.
Show new reels.
But maybe that's part of it too. If people are on LinkedIn, that's a way of showing their work, I suppose. I mean, and full disclosure, like TWiT, we have content that hits up on LinkedIn as well. So it's not like we don't choose to put our content there to show what we do. But
that's the thing though. We're putting the content that we have already created out there as part of our own marketing push. Yeah. Okay. We're not going to the platform and creating
in the hopes of making
the
money
platform
within LinkedIn.
Right. It's a difference there. I don't know if I just can't yet put my mind to say, you know what, I'm going to go into I'm going to log into LinkedIn. I'm going to make sure I have this scene set up, make sure all my fonts are good, and then I'm going to hit broadcast. Yeah. That never crosses my mind.
No. So mine neither.
I don't know if it'll hit the other content creators out there, but let us know your thoughts. Just tag us on social media or
That works. Tag us on LinkedIn and let us know how you feel. All right. I alluded to it. Coming up, we're going to talk a little bit about Wyze. They're in a little bit of hot water. All right. So some security news, some unfortunate security news. I'm super curious to hear your take on this. Wyze, which is... you're probably familiar with Wyze. We've talked about them on the network many times. We reviewed their products. And actually, I've felt like they make some pretty great smart home products, right?
Yep.
They make, security cameras.
Yep.
They make locks, like automatic locks for the doors, that sort of stuff. And it's always, I've felt in my exposure to Wyze, high enough quality. It's not like the top tier, but the quality is really good at an affordable price.
That's the thing. It was always something that was pretty affordable and where anybody can just sort of jump into it, because a lot of the stuff that's out there now from an IoT standpoint costs like $1 zillion and it's not worth it.
Or it's affordable and it's a piece of junk, or really poorly made, or really poorly supported. And it really seemed, Wyze is actually created by some ex-Amazon some people who were high up in Amazon. So it kind of had the foundation, I think it's a West Coast, based on the West Coast here in the States, had the foundations to be like, well, here's a relatively inexpensive smart home manufacturer that makes quality products for less money than the rest, and they're supported well and all those things. Well, a pretty major vulnerability of the Wyze Cam, of which there are 3 different generations of the Wyze Cam, just to preface this, is now being publicized. It was reported and relatively unfixed after being reported by Bitdefender for 3 years. So Bitdefender publicly acknowledged just this week that it had notified Wyze of a serious issue with its cameras back in March of 2019. So 3 years ago, they said, hey, Wyze, we've found some issues. A couple of those issues. The main one is this vulnerability that allows access to an onboard SD card via the internet. No authentication required to get that access. Apparently, you plug in an SD card. It sets up some sort of way that somebody could access it if they knew how online without any authentication. That would give that person access to any video, audio, images that were stored there by the camera, but also any other files that the user might happen to put on the SD card, which I don't know how many users are doing that. But
everybody doesn't format their SD cards.
That's true. That's a good point. Okay, there you go.
Sure.
It's a really good point. You don't know what's on there. You put it in your camera.
You just slap it in there. So, here's an SD card sitting around. I can plug it in.
Yeah, right. I've got one of those. Here it is. Also storing log files. And that's important because those log files include the unique identification number and AES encryption key, which could lead to full remote access of the camera entirely.
Oh, joy.
All right. So that's all stored on the SD card. So Bitdefender reported that. They also reported 2 other vulnerabilities at the time. One, an authentication bypass flaw. That ultimately was patched in September 2019. So remember, these were reported March 2019. That was patched September 2019. The other, a remote execution vulnerability, which was patched November 2020. So that was, however many months, what is that? That's 16 months after being reported. The SD card flaw was only fixed this January, so almost 3 months later. In no cases did Wyze address these issues for its users publicly. And we're talking about a camera that is pointed at all sorts of things inside the home.
Oh, boy.
I mean, just bad. It's not good.
I had two things that popped in my head when I saw this article, and one of them is quite selfish. And that's when I saw it, it said version 1 for the camera, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I don't have a version 1 camera, so I just totally dismissed it, which is totally selfish. I get that, but then it was like, wait a minute, they said 3 years. And didn't do anything about it or say anything about this.
Didn't say anything about it.
That's
also
a problem.
Yeah, also, now you have the Wyze system, and I have a Wyze door lock. That's the only Wyze thing that I have. I have many Wyze things, but Wyze branded things, I only have the door lock. Yeah. And my understanding with the door lock is if I want to update the firmware, I have to do it manually. Yeah. So I have to open the app. I have to connect it to, make sure that it's connected properly to the lock. I have to update firmware, send it over. So this is all under the assumption that once they made that change, you with your camera then went in at some point, may have not been immediately because, well, you didn't know that the dang thing was,
exactly
in that state initially, but eventually you would go in and update your firmware, and until that happened, it was not updated.
You're not opening that camera app unless you see an alert that tells you to open it, because otherwise it's just sitting there running. At least for me, and when I see an alert that someone is walking across the yard, I'll open it up. Other than that, I don't think anything about those products, but why 3 years? And why
it
not
doesn't
say
make sense.
anything? It makes no sense at all. And you can't throw the whole it was COVID blame on it. I don't want to hear any of that crap. You have all of the resources to work on these things remotely and get a fix in. And the people that are finding these bugs, they always respect the bounty and allow you plenty of time to go ahead and work it out before going public with it. So they tried to show you respect. You need to show respect to these consumers and get this stuff fixed in a timely manner, not just sit on it. Come on, Wyze, you're better than this, I thought.
I agree with you to an extent.
All right.
But Sean Hollister, who wrote for The Verge, really points out something, that's important to take a look at through a critical lens. Bitdefender waited 3 years to make this public too.
Good point.
They told Wyze about this back in March 2019. And they knew about this for 3 years. And at a certain point, it's kind of like, okay. Oh, and in fact, not only that, Bitdefender contacted Wyze in March 2019. They didn't actually get a response from Wyze until November 2020. That was 20 months later. So they knew about it. They never got that response.
Oh, boy.
So it's kind of also on them, right? Like, obviously, they weren't the ones that, created the Wyze camera.
It's partly on them as a whistleblower aspect,
right.
But it's still Wyze's product.
Absolutely.
Right?
No question. But I think the response on Bitdefender's side too is questionable. It's like, why did you wait this long? Like,
right. We'll say, okay, now, so what are the next steps? How are we going to educate consumers that this is something that we as consumers need to be aware of on a regular basis? Because again, I'm guilty of not checking my app unless that thing gives me a reason to open it.
Yeah. The company, why? And again, Sean Hollister points this out. He, up until this happened, he was a very proud user of Wyze, had all sorts of, their cameras. I don't know how many. In this article, he basically says they're in the trash now. Like, I've thrown them all away. Wyze, I'm never, supporting another one of your products. This is a bridge too far. But he says he would get emails from Wyze, and I'm sure we have gotten these emails. I haven't seen them. Maybe they go into like my promotions folder and I just don't see them. And he said, at first, when I got them, I actually really appreciated them because they were just like check-in emails from Wyze saying, hey, by the way, we've updated the firmware. So make sure and go into your app and update the firmware on your camera so that you're up to date on a blah, blah, blah. And he said, at the time, I really appreciated those. Looking back now, knowing what I know, it feels kind of devious. It's kind of like, we're not going to tell you why, but let's just, paint a rosy picture here. They said, what did they say? Update the Wyze Cam firmware to be sure you are in tip-top shape so you can breathe easy and know Wyze has your back.
That's
smiley face,
That's the thing I've seen. And the thing is, Wyze, they're not the only company guilty of that.
No.
You get a lot of stuff like that from some of the apps that you run on your smartphone. Hey, let's update the app for, quote, bug fixes.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily get into
what's
that
going
it
on
being a vulnerability that was patched or anything like that. It'll literally just say bug fixes. Adobe, I'm a proud Adobe user and authorized affiliate. Adobe is known for having some security issues. And when I get my little release of time to update this app, it always says performance issues and bug fixes. It never says, oh yeah, we had a hole that we need to patch. Go ahead and fix that now. Thanks.
Yeah. So why is that? Because I think, well, maybe there's a certain level of consumer who's less dialed into the day-to-day on technology products who would see that and be like, wow, they're completely insecure. But like, I'm a realist, I guess, in all this stuff, to where I understand that companies aren't going to release a product. Like, hopefully they've done their due diligence, right, to make sure that their product is as safe as it could possibly be. But I also understand that, like, this is technology and holes happen. Yeah. And so if it happens to your product, just tell me. Just say, hey, this thing happened. We discovered it. We patched it. Face the fire now versus later, 3 years later, because I guarantee you the reaction, the response is going to be way greater 3 years later than it would if you just admit it.
That I get, but at the same time, maybe there's also a group of consumers that says, oh man, you had a flaw in this security and you just now told me 1 month later, that's the bridge too far, and I leave. I don't know. I've seen a bit of that too. People are a bit extreme.
No question.
When it comes to stuff. So maybe that's why they're so tempered on how they approach this stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I wish it was something that that all of us as consumers would be better with, far as the security of all of our different connected devices.
For sure.
It's too common for this stuff to happen. I mean, we just got finished talking about basically being phished, and it seems like that stuff is just continuing to happen more and more and more and more. And you're thinking, phishing is old news, and it's still happening?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So
totally. There's still people to fall for it, I suppose. You know what I mean? And there probably always will be. There's just so many people on the planet.
I wish we were wrong.
There's always a sea of people to take advantage of, unfortunately.
I wish we were wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, we've reached the end of this episode of Tech News Weekly. Thank you so much for watching and listening. We do this show every Thursday at twit.tv/TNW. That's where you can go to subscribe to the show in audio and video formats. You can also jump out to YouTube and subscribe there. Then you don't have to seek it out. It'll just be delivered to you like magic. So twit.tv/TNW.
And if you want to catch versions of this show without ads, you can just join good old Club Twit. It's $7 a month, which is pretty much like one fancy cup of coffee. Hop on over there. You get all of the shows ad-free. You get bonus content. You get to hang out in our Discord and just chat with all of the other Club Twit members. And we also offer an Apple Podcast subscription as well. It's only $3 a month for that, where you can get ad-free versions of the audio shows on the Apple Podcast platform.
Yes, indeed. Where can people find you online, Ann Pruitt?
Well, you can find me here at twit.tv/hop, twit.tv/HOP for my show, Hands On Photography, or just head on over to the social medias. Give me a follow on Instagram. I am ant_Pruitt.
Oh, yeah. And I'm at Jason Howell on Twitter. Also do All About Android. So that's twit.tv/AAA every Tuesday. And that's really about it. Thanks to everyone who helped us do this show each and every week. Thank you, John Ashley. Thank you, Burke.
Woohoo.
And thanks to you, dear listener/watcher, /chatter/discorder, whoever you are. Thank you for watching and listening. We'll see you next time on Tech News Weekly. And now, do you want to do a high five or fist bump?
Fist bump. Always.
Fist bump. Boom.
Always.
Is that an iPhone in your hand? Wait a second. Is that an Apple Watch on your wrist? And do I see an iPad sitting there on the table? Oh my goodness. You are the perfect person to be watching iOS Today, the show where Rosemary Orchard and I, Micah Sargent, talk all things iOS, tvOS, watchOS, HomePod OS. It's all the OSs that Apple has on offer, and we show you how to make the most of those gadgets. Just head to twit.tv/iOS to check it out.